Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of Cabinet. I would like to welcome members of the Cabinet, officers and members of the public viewing on YouTube to this virtual meeting of the Cabinet. I am Councillor Dina Romero and I am the leader of Bath and North East Somerset Council. I will now call out the names of the other participants for this meeting to introduce themselves. So when I call your names, could you just unmute yourself and just say that you are here. So Councillor Richard Samuel.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Richard Samuel, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Councillor Paul Crosley.
Good evening, Councillor Paul Crosley, present, Cabinet Member for a variety of things, but tonight I'm presenting the taxi paper.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Sarah Warren.
Good evening, present, Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency.
Councillor Tim Ball.
Evening, Cabinet Member for Housing, Planning and Economic Development.
Councillor Dave Wood.
Good evening, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services.
Councillor Joanna Wright.
Hello, Joint Cabinet Member for Transport Services with Neil Butters.
Councillor Neil Butters.
Good evening, Joint Cabinet Member for Transport Services with Joe.
Councillor Rob Appleyard.
Yeah, good evening. Yes, Councillor Rob Appleyard, Cabinet Member for Adult Care, Safeguarding and Public Health.
Thank you. And Councillor Kevin Guy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Councillor Kevin Guy, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People.
Thank you. Also present are Will Godfrey, who is the Chief Executive of the Council, Michael Hewitt, who is our Legal Services Manager, and Jack Lakovich, who is the Senior Democratic Services Officer. I hope I've not missed anybody out. So the Council has agreed a protocol to cover virtual meetings, and this meeting will operate in line with that protocol in accordance with Coronavirus Regulations 2020. The meeting has the same status and validity as a meeting held in the Guildhall. Can I remind members, officers and speakers to keep background noise to a minimum, to only speak one person at a time and not to speak over others. Please mute your microphones when not speaking, then unmute when I invite you to speak. Please indicate if you wish to speak by using the chat facility on Zoom. So either type MIS, may I speak, or raise your virtual hand and I will call you in turn to speak. Councillor Richard Samuel will take over the chairing of the meeting if I have to leave the meeting or if I lose my connection. If the Cabinet is required to take a vote, I will read out each member's name in alphabetical order. Each member should then clearly state if they are for or against the motion. This will enable the Senior Democratic Services Officer to accurately record the vote and will also ensure that decision-making is clear to the public who are viewing on YouTube. On some occasions, Cabinet members' video feed may go blank, so you will see a black screen. Some Cabinet members use their iPads to participate at this meeting and they may look at agenda papers which would temporarily switch off their video feed. Those Cabinet members will still be in the meeting as they will be able to hear and be heard at the meeting, which are the virtual meeting requirements under Coronavirus Regulations 2020. So as you may be aware, this is also November the 5th. And there may well be unexpected loud noises and perhaps some reactions from pets as we're all taking part in this meeting from our homes. So my apologies if that does happen. Tonight's meeting is the first in the second lockdown in England. Once again, we are all urged to stay at home where possible and by doing so protect the NHS and to save lives. Before the last weekend, we in Bath and North East Somerset were considering a move into Tier 2 as our case numbers had escalated so alarmingly. The rates then, as now, are increasing across all age bands and there does not appear to be a single cause or setting for discrete containment measurements. If we do not get our case numbers down, then at the end of this lockdown, we could be placed into Tier 2 or 3, or perhaps a higher tier, and along with that will come the continuation of restrictions. So before I start this meeting, I urge you all to play your part, to follow the rules and to help get and keep the numbers of cases down. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before I move on? So the next item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and I do not believe that I have received any, and I will ask Democratic Services Jack if that is correct.
That is correct. There are none.
Thank you. So next item, declarations of interest.
We received no declaration of interest.
Thank you, Jack. Urgent business as agreed by the chair. I need to inform the meeting that agenda item 11, government invitation to Somerset to submit locally led proposals for unitary local government, will be considered under urgency rule 15 of the council's constitution. Next on my agenda is questions from public and councillors. We have one. So I'm going to do this in the right order and actually go with the questions from public and councillors. And we have no questions from the public. So I will now go to the questions from councillors. So the first question is from Councillor Warrington, and it is to Councillor Wood. I do not believe Councillor Warrington is in the room, so I'm just going to double check whether she is present, because it's only if she was present she could ask a supplementary question.
That is correct, Madam Chairman. Councillor Wellington has no supplementary.
Thank you. Councillor Warrington to Councillor Wright.
No supplementary.
Councillor Warrington to Councillor Ball.
No supplementary.
Councillor May to Councillor Ball.
Councillor May is not here, so no supplementary.
Thank you. Councillor May to Councillor Ball again.
No supplementary.
Councillor May to myself.
No supplementary.
Councillor May to Councillor Butters.
No supplementary.
Councillor May to Councillor Samuel.
No supplementary.
Chairman, I do need to amend the answer slightly because the webinar referred to in the reply, I understand has now been deferred till later in the year. So if that could be noted in the reply, that would be good. Thank you.
Noted.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Samuel. So question 10 is from Councillor May to Councillor Guy.
No supplementary.
Question 11 is from Councillor Paul Myers to myself.
Councillor Paul Myers is present and he's got a supplementary question for you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Councillor Myers.
Good evening, and thank you for your earlier response. And my supplementary is, does the council carry out exit interviews with staff when they leave?
Thank you for the question. So exit interviews are offered where appropriate. And for senior staff, those exit interviews are with the Director of HR and OD.
Thank you.
And I believe this is the final question from Councillor Hardman to Councillor Guy.
Councillor Hardman is having a supplementary, and I believe she's present here to ask a supplementary question.
Good evening, Councillor Hardman.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Hi. This is such welcome news about making sure children in receipt of free school meals will be getting free school meals over the school holidays up to and including the Easter holidays. I have always said, ultimately, we do need to address the underlying reasons for food poverty. But in the meantime, it's so important that we act now to ensure that children don't go hungry. So I would like Kevin, thank you, to give me more details about how you anticipate the process of supplying vouchers / food to free school meal children during the school holidays and how it will work. Thanks.
Hi Liz, and thank you very much for your supplementary question and your support on this issue. It's an extremely important issue. I can confirm that the council has identified funding for free school meals vouchers and will work with partners to distribute these vouchers / funding to parents in the most efficient way. Schools and children's centres will be an integral part of the logistics, the distribution of these vouchers, and we need to discuss this with them to make it the most efficient way possible. I can confirm, though, since last Monday's emergency meeting, that we have allocated £79,000 to fund this proposal, and children in Bath and North East Somerset will not go without food during the school holidays, especially at Christmas. We're looking to draw down additional funding to support free school meals in Baines, and I am also working with a local food poverty steering group to look at how we can help tackle the wider issues surrounding this extremely important issue. I hope that answers your question, Liz.
Yes, it does. I think I can ask one more supplementary. Do you think you'd have enough money? Because I do believe you said that St. John's Foundation were going to put quite a bit of money in. Do you think that would be enough to make sure that if government doesn't come forth with any additional funding, that we would have enough money for these free school meals up to and including the Easter holidays?
Thanks for that, Liz. I'd like just to say at this point that the great work done by 3SG, Vera Hobhouse and St. John's with their crowdfunding appeal was a separate to free school meals. So they did a brilliant job. There's over 400 members of the public, which I'd like to thank on that issue. And that money will be going directly to help organisations connected to children and food poverty, but will not be going towards free school meals. The council itself will be funding this issue, and the cabinet has agreed already that the £270,000 plus that will be required up till Easter will be found somehow through council funding alone. I hope that answers your question, Liz.
Yes, it does. Sorry, I'm muted and unmuted myself. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's the end of the councillors' questions. So we now move on to statements, deputations or petitions from public and councillors. And I believe we have one from David Redgewell.
Thank you very much. So the points I wrote in the statement originally were obviously pre the government's lockdown, but nevertheless, I think they're still very, very important. I'll just raise the concerns because if the 2nd December, the government reopens and the council's in level 2 with Bristol and South Gloucestershire, not to say that it will happen, but that was the proposal I certainly was briefed about from a transport point of view last week. So the point is about how we control the student buses. And I noticed a number of breaches, and I had 4 colleagues go and check on the services to and from the university. A number of students were pretty drunk. Others were failing to wear face coverings and making it quite difficult for the drivers. I know that James Freeman has asked for support from the Avon and Somerset Constabulary on making sure that we protect the bus network and particularly the staff. I reiterate that move tonight. James repeated that a few days ago. The Avon and Somerset Police have a COVID squad, and we would like to see them more around the public transport network, especially during lockdown. They were this morning in Milsom Street talking to the public, and they were around the, I can report around the bus station and railway station with transport police. But that's something we need to keep really much ahead of to protect the public transport network. The other is the same question that my colleagues have said and checked, is one, to make sure we have social distancing marshals inside and around the bus station, or journey marshals. I've had 4 reports of 6 journeys now on 6 evenings where there has been nobody supervising. And of course, that is very, very important that we actually make sure the bus queues are safe and the rail queues. At the moment, the bus network was at about 22%, and the rail network was about 16% of normal travel from First Great Western and South Western Railways. So the other issues around bus services, we've got an issue on the D3, which is Bath to Frome, and there's a morning journey for the schools in Bath, but there is no return journey. And this means that young people are walking, 11 of them, from the main bus stops in Beckington into Road, which of course is in Mendip District, but the service is funded by WECA. I've literally in the last few minutes had literally an email as you started the meeting from Peter Mann saying the service level agreements will remain as now on all bus networks, and a similar email from Jane Jones at First Great Western Railways to say the same thing. I think the other issue is about the Metro Mayor. We know how important these mayors are in the government discussions. I understand from other colleagues in West Midlands Combined Authority that the level of money being offered to the 3 unitaries for level 2 was not enough, and I agree with that. And I do believe we need to push the Weka Mayor to make sure that we get a good settlement if we move out of lockdown into level 2 for the people of Bath and North East Somerset in any agreements on finances from central government to the 3 unitary authorities. On Weka, I make the point again that North Somerset should join Weka. Very, very important. Weka is just about to publish its strategic plan. I think it's just come out with a number of webinars planned. And of course, you've got one part of the conurbation, which is not part of the combined authority. And I think that is a real difficulty when you're planning bus routes, housing development, and public transport, and road schemes for that matter. So I do believe there's a real case for that. And of course, I've always said you're going to discuss the Somerset review, but we feel very strongly that there's a case to be made to look at whether Mendip and Baines Council decide to merge in some way. As the people of Mendip look towards Bath and Bristol, they don't look towards Taunton and across the great levels and moors towards the county. So I think there's an issue to be debated there. I know MPs are quite keen on that, and I know there's quite a few politicians of all parties have been very keen to look at that, explore that position. So that I bring that to your attention. The only bus routes that we still think there should be work on is the 174, the evening journeys out towards Shepton Mallet, Radstock, Midsummer, and Peasdown. They're still packing in quite early, and we're still not happy. There's only four journeys on the 37 bus through Kelston and Weston, which of course are in Baines, through to Bristol a day, when we used to have an hourly service which cut off around about 7 o'clock at night, Mondays to Saturdays. So I think those are the real issues, but I am still very concerned about COVID security around the transport network, the cleaning, and even with, we note today, people that should have been not on the streets were out on the streets when lockdown was supposed to be, and it's now on the transport network, essential journeys only, necessary and essential, which means you have to explain why you're traveling, work, shopping, post offices, banks, and to meet your loved ones in a bubble. There are no other reasons to be using the public transport network at the present time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. As ever, a very interesting and wide-ranging statement. Does anyone have any questions for David? Councillor Butters?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David, as always, for your considered thoughts. Just a quick one. I think you mean the D2 rather than the D3 if you're talking about Beckington and Frome.
Sorry, I do mean the D2. Sorry, yeah. my
I'll delve into that and see what the problem is. We've had a few problems with the D2, but I thought they'd been dealt with. But just to pick a particular other area of your concern, were you aware that COVID safety officers were now coming shortly to Bath and North East Somerset?
I am delighted to see Bath following Bristol, South Gloucestershire and Gloucestershire County Council and Swindon. I thought it would come as a team. I just hope there's enough resources, and I hope they've got the red card procedure that if people don't listen, that the council officers and the police, even the Somerset Police Commissioner, can issue fines, because obviously this pandemic is taking people's lives, which is a sad thing to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, David, again.
Thank you.
So, I'll now move on to item 7, which is the minutes of the meeting we had on the 10th of October. Can I invite somebody to propose that these are a correct record, please? Thank you, Councillor Appleyard. And anyone to second? Thank you, Councillor Butters. And then could everyone just indicate that they're happy? I won't go through the alphabetical list. Just if you just raise your hand to say you're happy with these as a sign these off. Excellent, thank you. I just wanted to add one point that was made. So a number of us wished to meet with voters who came and spoke very eloquently to us. So we were in the process of setting up a meeting with the voting community, and it was just to share with everybody that that meeting has now been delayed until after the second lockdown. So item 8 is single member items now requisitioned to Cabinet. I do not believe there are any. And item 9, matters referred by policy development and scrutiny bodies. I've not been alerted to any of those. Item 10, recent single member decisions taking. I would just like to ask Cabinet to note, and again, I won't go through the list, but if you could just raise your hand to indicate that you're happy to note. Is that okay, Jack? You seen everyone?
That's fine. Thank you. All four.
Thank you. Okay, so item 11. So this is this has been taken under Rule 15, and this is the invitation from government to submit a locally led proposal for unitary local government. I do not believe we've got any speakers on this item, so I'd like to move straight on to moving this proposal, or what I'm going to propose. So we received a letter from the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government on the 9th of October, asking if we wanted to submit a locally led proposal for a unitary with all of or part of Somerset. In May 2018, Somerset County Council announced its intention to explore a model of government which might deliver better services in Somerset. Earlier discussions included the districts within Somerset County Council's borders, as well as with North Somerset and Bath and North East Somerset councils. The then administration of this council commissioned some advice in 2018 so that it could objectively take part in those early discussions. That advice concluded that there were significant risks to the council's ability to deliver its strategic priorities, noting that the proposed financial impact, along with the ability of Bath and North East Somerset to be able to develop policies and interventions specific to its socio-economic environment, were likely to be hampered, and that any benefits were deemed to be insignificant compared to the scale of risk compared to the proposal. I do not believe that that situation has changed. We have not formally taken part in discussions, nor have we been involved in the business plans drawn up and submitted by Somerset County Council, nor those submitted by the 4 district councils within Somerset County Council borders. So at this time, I do not believe we have anything to gain by submitting a late extra possibility for government to consider. We do, as David Wedgwell pointed out to us, have the question of North Somerset's request to join WECA that needs to be fully addressed. So this has some obvious benefits to us as it consolidates the economic region. So, and as pointed out, so it also includes housing, transport, as well as skills. And this is a region that we already work within. It is my view that that request needs to be resolved more urgently than whether we should look to create a new unitary with, to us, untried partners. So I would like to propose to Cabinet that we consider the report, but recommend to Council that it does not submit a proposal for the local government reorganisation in Somerset, and to publicly indicate our intention to continue to act as a separate local unitary authority council. But we will continue to cooperate with all our public sector partners, including neighbouring councils, to offer the best services that we can to local residents and to visitors. So, can I invite someone to second my proposal, please?
I will second, Madam Chairman. In doing so, there are a few points I'd like to add to what you've already said. The history of county-based reorganisations around the country has not been a happy one over the years, and invariably the costs of these reorganisations have been higher than were hoped at the point proposals were put forward and agreed by the government. And aside from the cost issue, these reorganisations consume an enormous amount of time in the public sector, not just for the councils involved themselves, but also for partners who work with the councils. And at this particular point in time, when all councils are trying to work with our colleagues in the National Health Service to help tackle the COVID pandemic, this, in my mind, is a costly and entirely unnecessary distraction. The leader has already pointed out that this council faces very much towards the West of England Combined Authority, and those arrangements, which of course build on previous partnerships, are really the ones that we should be concentrating on. So I don't think there is any real case for including Bath, North East, Somerset in these proposals. The financial plans, as I say, are unclear at this stage. And one does have to ask whether Somerset County Council has resolved its very well publicised financial problems over recent years, and the fact that in the districts themselves, 2 of those districts have been forced to merge because they've also faced financial problems. So this does not seem like a great deal to me for Bath, North East, Somerset residents. Nevertheless, we have taken this proposal seriously, and in reaching the recommendations that I'm happy to second, we have considered the possibilities very carefully. So really, Madam Chairman, I think in conclusion, I'd say thanks, but no thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. I will now open the floor up. Councillor Dave Wood.
Yes, I want to echo what's been said so far already. Most importantly, there just is not the business case for this to proceed. In addition to thinking about the council's finances and expedient government, we have to consider what's best for residents as one of our most primary concerns. There has been speculation that a Greater Somerset 3-county solution might be possible. I don't believe the figures add up for that to be the case. And what would be being proposed would be a Greater Somerset 2 council solution, which could potentially see an authority that would run all the way from Bath to the Devon border. Our area would be swamped and people would be so far away from the centre of decision making that this would be a poor outcome for our residents. So I think this is the right solution and I will be voting for this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wood. Do I have any other speakers? I don't see that I have any other speakers. So I'd now like to move to the vote. I don't think there's very much to sum up. Just echoing Councillor Samuel's words, which were, I believe, thank you, but no thanks. So I will call you now in alphabetical order. Councillor Appleyard, are you for or against?
I am for your proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Ball?
For.
Councillor Butters?
For.
Councillor Crosley?
For.
Councillor Guy?
For.
Councillor Romero? For. Councillor Samuel?
For.
Councillor Warren?
For.
Councillor Wood?
For.
And Councillor Wright? I believe that is unanimous. Jack, can you just confirm that, please?
That's correct. Thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item, item 12, is the amendment to policy on Hackney carriage and private hire licensing standards for drivers, vehicles and operators. Can I invite Councillor Crosley to present this report, please?
Didn't you want to ask if there was any comments from members of the public first?
I don't believe there are, but I will double check.
Right.
No, we don't have any ad hoc contributions for this item.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Right, so this policy is quite a simple one. It's about aligning taxi policy with our clean air zone policy, and is really just an administrative process. We've been given from the government 9.4 million to help taxis, coaches, buses, vans, all commercial vehicles meet the requirements for clean air standards. And there's a range of items put down in the report saying how this money is going to be used and is available. And it is my intention that we actually do record all the help and the way we spend that, so that at the end of the process, we've got a list of how we distributed this money and to what effect. And so far, we've had over 600 expressions of interest. And the purpose is all about improving air quality. So in Bath and North East Somerset, all our taxi operators have been texted individually to alert them to this offer. And we very much hope that local businesses and trades who operate in and around the city will move very quickly to get that before other ones who might not be based or so committed to our area. And to check that they are operating in our area, anyone that applies will be fitted with a telematic device so that we can see that they are eligible, they meet the terms and conditions of this government grant. And I would just reiterate to our residents listening, all the money being spent on this comes from central government, which is why it's available to all businesses operating within the City of Bath. But particularly, we want to get our taxi fleet up to the best condition for the clean air requirements, because I think there's a growing awareness that dirty air is actually not good for anyone's health or even anything at all. So this is all about clean air zone and bringing our taxi licensing policy into a line with the clean air zone. It's using government money to enable our commercial fleet, and in this case our taxi fleet, to upgrade as required or as necessary, as specified in the report, to make sure that they can operate within the clean air zone as it rolls out. So I so move the recommendations as printed in 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. Do I have somebody to second this proposal, please?
Yes, I'll second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Warren.
So just in doing that, I'll say that I'm pleased to second it. It requires, so the policy requires vehicles to have nitrogen dioxide emissions compliant with the clean air zone, barring certain exemptions that are set out in the report. Grants and loans are available, as Councillor Crossley has said, to eligible businesses owning non-compliant vehicles, which might include taxis, vans, HGVs and buses. Companies can check the compliance of their vehicles now via the DVLA vehicle tracker, which can be accessed via the Council's Clean Air Zone webpage. And they can then contact the Council's Clean Air Zone team to establish whether they might be eligible for grants or loans. And I would just reiterate what Councillor Crossley has said, that the Clean Air Zone is a really important public health measure that will improve air quality in the city. And we very much hope that all our taxi drivers will look into upgrading their vehicles so as to achieve this important outcome for public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Do I have any other speakers? Just making sure. I don't believe I have any other speakers. So I would like to move back to Councillor Crossley. If you have any additional words that you wanted to say in summing up.
Nothing further to say, Chair.
Thank you. Then again, I will go through the list of councillors in alphabetical order and ask you to indicate if you are for or against this the recommendations. Councillor Appleyard.
For the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
For the recommendations.
Councillor Butters.
For.
Councillor Crossley.
For.
Councillor Guy.
For.
Councillor Romero. For. Councillor Samuel.
For.
Councillor Warren. Councillor Warren.
Aye, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
4.
And Councillor Wright.
4.
Thank you. I believe that that is unanimous. Jack, can you confirm that, please?
That is correct, Madam Chairman. It's unanimous 4.
Thank you. So item 13 is the Youth Justice Plan for 2020 to 2021. I will just check whether or not we have anybody who wishes to speak, any ad hoc contributions.
There are no ad hoc contributions.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, would you like to introduce the report, please, and move the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The local authority has statutory duty in consultation with the police, probation and health services, as named in the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, to publish its annual justice plan, setting out agreed actions to help prevent offending and re-offending. The council is the lead partner in this multi-agency arrangement. All partners have statutory responsibilities to help resource youth offending services and are maintaining their current levels of support. Due to the pandemic, the Youth Justice Board of England and Wales has advised there's no requirement to submit a plan to them this year, and therefore no national framework has been completed. However, the Youth Offending Service Management Board has agreed in preparation for a shorter plan. The Youth Offending Service is mindful that the children it works with presents a risk to the community and is taken seriously and addressed through all the work undertaken with them. At the same time, the service is working with some of the most vulnerable children in our area, and they need to be safeguarded and supported. When the implications of the pandemic became clear, the service took early steps with a RAG rating system with the caseloads in order to identify those with the greatest likelihood of offending and/or the welfare and safeguarding needs. Contact was maintained with everyone, and the most vulnerable have continued to receive assistance, and the response with face-to-face services, including attending their mental health needs and engaging in education, training and employment. The rate of children coming into the justice system for the first time continues to reduce in Baines, and the rate of custodial sentencing remains low in Baines. There remains some concerns about the rate of reoffending by the minority of children, which is addressed through the continuation of the trauma-informed intervention system and involvement in a wider multi-agency work to address criminal exploitation of young people. Children from dual heritage and mixed backgrounds continue to be overrepresented in the justice system. This is currently being explored through active involvement in the local criminal justice board and the LAMI review. The service recently self-assessed its adherence to its national standards and found a high level of compliance, though this has identified improvement action points on the basis of its annual work plan. I can confirm that the cross-party Children and Young People's PDS panel endorsed this plan on the 3rd of November, and therefore I ask the Cabinet to formally move this plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Do I have someone to second this proposal? Councillor Appleyard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's fair to say it's a testament to the importance that the council, the Cabinet and Councillor Guy and the officers put on this work. Yes, there was an indication that although there's a statutory requirement, there wasn't a need to submit a plan this year, and it's credit to the officers of Councillor Guy that they chose to actually keep the focus on the work that they're doing. And I think if you read the report, which is quite an interesting report, I think one of the figures that certainly stands out in my mind is that the reduction on first-time entrants into the programme since 2015 has reduced by something like 75%, which shows that there are many, many younger people that are coming through this and then will go into later life to become a positive contributor to the life of our communities, as opposed to being a drain on there. There is much more work to be done, but I'm really impressed with the focus that's currently being shown on this and look forward to further successes. So I've no problem at all seconding the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Appleyard. Do I have anybody who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody who has indicated, in which case I move back to Councillor Guy to sum up.
I just formally move the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, again, I will call everyone in alphabetical order to indicate if they are for or against. Councillor Appleyard.
Delighted to be for.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Butters.
For.
Councillor Crossley.
For.
Councillor Guy.
For.
Councillor Romero. For. Councillor Samuel.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
Councillor Wood.
For.
And Councillor Wright.
For.
Thank you. Am I correct, Jack? Is that unanimous?
You're correct, Madam Chairman. That is unanimous for.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is revenue and capital budget monitoring, cash limits and requirements for April 2020 to September 2020. Just going to double check that there are no ad hoc contributions.
That is correct, Madam Chairman. No ad hoc contributions.
Thank you. So, Councillor Samuel, may I invite you to introduce the report and to move the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, firstly, can I thank the officers for this excellent report. The content gets better and better. I think this is a very comprehensive report and summary that we've got of the Council's finances to date. Just to remind the Cabinet, this is a Q2 report, so it is not up to date to current events, so we won't be saying too much about that. And it takes the financial performance of the Council up to the 30th of September. So it is a backward-looking report in that sense. There have, of course, been the last report that we received showing the Q1 performance was a much more difficult report than this one. And at that point, we were predicting a substantial loss at the year end for the Council. But in between that report and this one, government announcements between June and September have led to expected improvements in our financial position due to grants that the government have provided. So what we are now, but I think it is important to just recognise that so far the government grants which have come to the Council have not covered 100% of our extra costs and losses of income. And we have had to make our own savings, as members of the Cabinet will know, in the Financial Recovery Plan. Anyway, back to the report itself. So, as I said before, there is a lot of information in this report. It's very comprehensive, and I'm not going to go into, obviously, every single point of detail in the report. So I just want to highlight the key things. So you will, of course, all be aware that there have been substantial income losses from heritage services, parking and commercial income, and these are substantial and serious and have had to be dealt with in year. Aside from that, we have seen also some other pressures caused in part by the COVID pandemic. So, for example, a significant variance from budget in pause while that stops, if I may, Madam Chairman. My secretary is not working tonight. What I was going to say is that in addition to the income reductions, we've also seen pressures on SEND matters within children's services, and those amount to 3.2 million this year. And that money will be drawn not from the Council's revenue budget, but it will be drawn from the DSG, the school's grants. Some of the original savings that we penciled in at the beginning of this financial year in the budget in February are almost certainly now not going to be delivered because of COVID, and the effect that it has had on staff resources and the ability to work those savings through. So we are now having to include the effects of those reduced savings in our forecasts, and they are included in our estimates. On capital, the capital programme predictably has slipped from 113.7 million to 93.7 million. And again, that has been directly relatable to the standstill and difficulties in the building industry, particularly in the early part of this year. So that was an entirely expected outcome. And I just want to highlight the pressures on council tax and business rates collection funds. We are forecasting both will be down by £2 million this year due to people's and businesses' inability to pay in the way that they normally would. And some of that will be covered by past surpluses in the collection funds, and some will be covered elsewhere. On reserves, if the projections come through, then we are now predicting that we will not have to withdraw from reserves this year. We were originally, last time, expecting an up to £11 million withdrawal from reserves. I now want to just quickly run through some of the stuff in the appendices. So the detail in the revenue budget at a portfolio level is set out in Appendix 1, and right the way through that report there are variances from Q1 which are set out in the appendices. Appendix 2 covers the capital programme changes and a scheme commentary on what is the status of projects that are in progress. Appendix 3.1 is a single environment request which refers back to the send point that I made earlier on. So we will need to approve that. And Appendix 3.2 sets out detail on changes to cash limits. Appendix 4.1 sets out various approved capital environments made within budgets, and those are for noting for information because they've been done under delegated authorities. And the final appendix 4.2 shows the changes to the capital programme set out by portfolio. I just want to very briefly make some comment on the latest lockdown and the financial implications it will have. So we're all aware, of course, how could we miss it, that we're now in lockdown for another month. That will have direct financial implications to the council because once again our heritage facilities are having to be closed. I think it may be a little bit too early to see what the impact is on car parking, and the pressures on the commercial estate are consistent through the year because of the market conditions. So we are expecting to see some reduction in income again on top of the income losses that we'd already had. We are still working through that detail, and there have been this week some extra government grants announced. And I think we only got the details of those yesterday. And when we have pulled all that information together, we will then be able to update our position. So the Q3 report will give us a further position, and that'll be a very important one in terms of the outturn. So, Madam Chairman, that's a summary of this report. It's very encouraging, I think, to see that the strong action the Council took in the summer to stabilise our finances, together with additional financial assistance from the government, is putting us hopefully back on track. And the important thing, I think, is very much that we want to start the 21-2 financial year and the budgeting for that in as strong a position as we can. So with that, I move the recommendations set out in the report at 2.1 and 2.4. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. Well, I think we're all concerned about the effects of the second lockdown, but with what we know at this moment in time, I'm happy to second this report as a statement of where we are at this moment in time. I think we can be all very pleased and congratulate our officers and indeed yourself, Councillor Samuel, on the work that you have done to ensure that revenue is forecasted to be on budget, and we note the position on capital, on cash limits, and also on the draws down from reserves. So without making too much more of that, as I said, I'm happy to second, and I now invite Councillor Crossley to speak.
Thank you very much, Chair. If you look under my section, you'll see that we've got a lot of problems that we've been addressing. And at this point, I would like to thank the staff of every single department for the amazing work they've done in responding to the crisis and the challenges faced by COVID. You know, if we look at the library service, virtually every week there's a new initiative, there's works and ways to get people engaged with libraries and books and reading in a variety of number of ways. These unfortunately are predominantly web-based and internet-based, but we are looking in the library services at how people can choose books without browsing too much with the grab and go system, which has been very popular and has encouraged people to try new authors. The registrar system is just amazing. I was just yesterday with the weddings people at the Royal Botanical Gardens and the Temple of Minerva. And although we've had struggles over the last few months, you might have seen today on the local news, the wedding of Mr. and Mrs. White Christmas. That was a wonderful fairy tale story. Mr. White married Miss Christmas, and they've joined their names together. And they were very happy with the service that they provided from our staff, including the rebooking and the facilitating, and how we worked with them to make sure that their special day was special for them and in their memories. Parks, we've done, again, we've lost a lot of our income. We've had a lot of extra use of our parks, but still, and I think what this COVID has shown is the importance of many of our non-statutory services, and maybe we've not valued them enough in the past, and we've cut some of those bits too harsh. Our heritage was closed for several months, it's now open, and we are one of the leading attractions at safe visiting. And actually the effect of that has been that because there's far less people wandering around, the people that are coming are really having a much greater enjoyment from their visit. And again, with our reduced capacity, we are again at capacity, leading the way for visitor attractions across the country. So wherever you look in my area, you know, the staff are doing wonderful jobs. They're coming up with imaginative ways to address the problems and to work with those problems and to make sure that we look at how we raise incomes. And certainly that has been a key message I've been given, you know, see how we can get our services out to people during these difficult times and how we can get more people using our services perhaps in different ways. And I'm very hopeful that as we come out of COVID, then that will have many long-term benefits for us. If we then look at the capital side, if I can just get to the capital side, which is page 85, you can see that again we are delivering. So the skateboard park, which was controversial. I first got to meet Councillor Wright, I think nearly a decade ago on this project. And so I am absolutely delighted that it is finishing and is in operation. I went to visit it before the work had completed, and it was great to see. That will enable Alice Park to be more buoyant. Parks, we've got lots of parks coming in with reviews and works going on in hand railing. And you know, people will see some jobs in progress, and that is just the nature of working in COVID. You've got to get sure your contractors are available and able to deliver. The Roman Bath Archway project is slightly behind schedule, but it's running well, and we will be looking to open it next year. And Sydney Gardens, again, we've had to adapt and change our plans. But again, you know, well done to the staff in the way they have shown flexibility and worked with people on revised activity plans and doing it. So across my portfolio area, Chair, I'm pleased that we are responding to the challenges. What this has shown for the council is that our budget was very heavily dependent on one model of income from the area that I manage and work with the staff on. And maybe going forward in the future, we have to look at how we diversify that income so that if a new crisis comes, then we'll be less badly hit. But one of the reasons we are doing well is because we immediately moved at the start of the crisis to make some very profound decisions that saved a lot of money and enabled us to be starting to come onto a very good footing as we start to look, hopefully, to emerge from this crisis in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley, for a very in-depth insight into your portfolio. And may I add my thanks also to your thanks for your staff that work within your service. Councillor Ball.
Yes, I can't honour Councillor Crossley. He's done in-depth research and presented very well this evening. I think we have to recognise all our staff who are working throughout this pandemic again now in lockdown. Many staff have worked from home for 6 months now and have been struggling, many of them, to actually continue to do the work. And we really need to thank them for delivering the services they've been delivering whilst under stress at home sometimes, working in difficult circumstances, broadband breaking down, emails crashing. It happens to us all. And really we owe a great deal of thanks from all of us for keeping us members sane as well. Because a few occasions I felt like going insane, but I've been pulled back on the right track several times. During all this, we have to remember we are carry on working. The building industry is carrying on. And early next week, a brand new bridge goes over the River Avon. One of our first ones for 100 years, between Bath Quays North and Bath Quays South. The work is carrying on today as I pass through. On a bicycle, by the way, there's on a car. And it's very impressive what's going on. So we thank them all of us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ball. And I'm sure we would all echo the words and thank all of our staff that work so hard and so tirelessly, particularly during this, the pandemic, and many of whom have not been able to work in their normal day-to-day job, but have been redeployed across the area to ensure that other areas of work that may not have even existed prior to the pandemic have now been carried out. So I'm just seeing if there's any other speakers. I'm not seeing anybody else, so I will move over to Councillor Samuel for any summing up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. There are just a few closing remarks I'd like to make on this. It is so important for public services to keep going no matter what at this current time. And like other cabinet members, I echo the comments about the way staff have pulled together to really keep this council moving forward. It is true that chaotic finances mean chaotic services. And I'm really pleased that we appear to be achieving some stability in our finances, because that means stability in the services we provide to local residents. We can't be complacent. There are still 6 months of the financial year still to go. We know it's going to be a tough winter, and we know that COVID isn't going to go away anytime soon. So we need to keep sharp focus on our finances over the next few months. And let's just remember, as a closing point, that unlike central government, that now seems to have virtually no programme to do anything at all, we are still delivering things for local residents in Bath, North East Somerset. But I do call on the government to remind them again, please fulfil your promises made earlier in the pandemic. Let's not forget, leisure services that we provide have not been funded by the government yet. We still wait to see any announcements on that. We know about the debacle on free school meals and the government's failure to fund those. What an own goal. And we know that commercial income that we generate and pass back to residents and services, that has also not been covered. I'm afraid this is a government you cannot trust, so we have to fall on our own resources to keep things going for local residents. So, Madam Chairman, I'll close with that remark and thank officers again, particularly officers in the finance team, for such an excellent report.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. So again, I turn to my alphabetical list to ask you all to vote for or against what is being recommended. Councillor Appleyard.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Butters.
For.
Councillor Crosley.
For.
Councillor Romero. For. Councillor Samuel.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
Councillor Wood.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Once again, I believe that is unanimous, Jack.
I'm also for, Chair.
And Councillor Guy as well.
I'm so sorry, Councillor Guy. I didn't mean to miss you out. I ticked you off, but didn't call your name, I'm afraid.
Now that is unanimous.
Thank you. Just really checking that you're keeping you on your toes there, Councillor Guy. Okay, so now we move to the last report that's coming to this Cabinet, which is the Treasury Management Monitoring Report to the 30th of September 2020. And I invite Councillor Samuel to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, this is the usual report that Cabinet will be familiar with. There aren't that many highlights that I really want to pick on, but you will note the very low returns in terms of returns on investment that have been received, although they are still above what is a very low benchmark. All of the indicators that the Council has previously agreed, all of the indicators on our Treasury performance are within the target ranges, so we are complying with Council's instructions and wishes. What I would like to highlight is in the Arling Close report at Appendix 5, there are some interesting comments within that report. And Arling Close, for those members of the Cabinet and the public, are the Council's Treasury advisors. So they are the experts that scan the financial markets for us and help us to anticipate what might come forward. And very interestingly, but perhaps not entirely surprisingly, is that Arling Close anticipate the ebb and flow of COVID restrictions will continue over the next year and will have consequent financial and economic impacts until a mass vaccine is found and distributed to the wider population. And I think that echoes the Chancellor's decision to extend the furlough scheme to March, which we've heard about today, because I think there is finally a recognition within government that this is not going to be a pandemic that goes away quickly. So I think that point is something we need to take into our financial planning over the next 2 years. They also comment that recovery will be slow and yields, and that's important in terms of how we invest our money, will be low for the foreseeable future. So I think this confirms the current medium and long-term view that we are taking within our medium-term financial strategy and will be reflected in the 21-2 budget when we present that next year. So I think some very interesting reading within that Arling Close report. So, Madam Chairman, I'll close on that and move the recommendations 2.1 to 2.3 as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. Do I have anybody to second this motion, please?
Yes, I'll second the motion. So in doing that, I'd just like to reiterate that the Council is currently actively engaging with the Treasury advisors with regard to disinvesting the 4 to 8% of Bain's Treasury funds that remain indirectly invested in fossil fuels, and that this is inevitably a gradual process that needs to balance any financial risk that might result in order to safeguard our precious council funds at a time of ongoing savage cuts to them and COVID-related losses. However, Any risks associated with a greener investment portfolio need to be weighed relative to the alternatives. And even Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, warned of the risk of assets in fossil fuel companies as we reach the point where their reserves must be left in the ground. So I'm hopeful that in a future Treasury report, we will be able to publish a timeframe for disinvestment of Treasury reserves from fossil fuels. And on that note, I finish and second the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Warren. So do I have any other speakers? Okay. In that case, then back to you, Councillor Samuel, for any closing remarks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Very briefly, well, when I get to the pearly gates, I don't want to be asked, why didn't you disinvest in fossil fuel when you were a councillor in Bath North East Somerset Council? So I think we will take Councillor Warren's point seriously, and I think she quite rightly said it is a balance. I'm sure over time, most authorities will move away from fossil fuel investment, but for the moment we're in that transitional period. But I think I am happy to undertake that we see how far this can be pushed, balancing out the needs the council has for income. So you have that undertaking, and we will bring something forward as soon as we can. So with that, Madam Chairman, I close my remarks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Samuel. So back to my list, and I will call you each in turn and try and make sure I include all of you this time, to ask you if you'd like to vote for or against. Councillor Appleyard.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Butters.
For.
Councillor Crossley.
For.
Councillor Guy.
For.
Councillor Romero, for. Councillor Samuel.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
Councillor Wood.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Have I missed anybody?
No,
I don't believe so.
Unanimous for.
Thank you, Jack. Well, that is the last item on this agenda. So I'd like to thank everybody who has watched the meeting on YouTube and everybody who has participated in the meeting. And I would also like to remind all that the next Cabinet meeting will be on the 10th of December 2020. And I would now like to close this meeting. So thank you, everybody, and good night.